Welcome everyone to today's webinar, From Fragmentation to Flow. LIMS meets service middle layer in GMP labs. In regulated industries, we all face some challenges. One of them is disconnected systems, another one manual processes, or even increasing compliance demands. In GMP environments, these inefficiencies don't just slow teams down, they put data integrity and also compliance and ultimately product quality at risk. But what if I told you that these challenges don't have to be roadblocks? That instead of working around fragmented workflows, we could create seamless, connected, and automated lab environments without compromising compliance. That's exactly what we will explore today, together with Thomas Eichmann. And I'm excited to have the perfect person today with us to guide this discussion. And to help us to make sense all of this, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Thomas. Thanks for having you.
Thanks, also thanks.
Thomas is one of those rare people who truly understands both the technical and the regulatory side of things. So with over 12 years of experience in GXP compliant software solutions, validation, and lab digitalization, he has helped countless companies navigate GAMP5, compliance automations, and also system integrations. It's a great pleasure to have you today in the session. First, before we dive into today's topic, let's quickly go over a few housekeeping rules to make sure you get the most out of this session. Number one, this webinar is being recorded, so if you need to revisit or part of discussion, just to later, we'll make the record available on our YouTube channel. We encourage you to ask questions. Just use the chat box, or we have an interactive Q&A session at the end of the presentation of Thomas. So don't worry, we'll follow up with a mail if we don't have the time to answer your questions directly in this session. If you want to have a copy of the presentation slides, they will be available upon request. So just let us know and send us a mail at hello@onelims.com. If you have any further questions or want to have a demo or need any consultancy, just message directly to Thomas through his LinkedIn profile or even mail us at hello@onelims.com. So we would be happy to continue the conversation. With that, let's get started. I want to give you a brief overview about Thomas. He is passionate about bringing structures to complexity in regulated industries. With over 12 years of experience in GMP compliant software solutions, he has helped countless companies navigating the challenges from digitalization, compliance, and validation in pharma, biotech, and medical devices. At Infoteam Software AG, Thomas worked at the intersection of technology and regulation, ensuring that software meets the highest GXP standards and makes life easier for those who are working in highly controlled laboratory environments. He knows firsthand that compliance shouldn't be a roadblock at all. It should be seamless part of everyday workflows in every lab. What drives him helps teams replace manual error-prone processes with smart, validated digital solutions. He thrives on finding ways to bridge gaps between systems, eliminating inefficiencies, and create workflows that truly work for the people using them. In this webinar, Thomas will share his insights on how connecting LIMS with a service middle layer like zenLab framework that helped regulated labs breaking free from data silos, ensuring compliance effortlessly, and work more efficient. Why you will hear from Thomas? Because he's practical problem solver, not just in theory, instead of real work best practice solutions for lab teams that faces daily challenges. He has a deep industry experience working on hands with regulated industries and in person. He also has tech meets compliance, which means helping labs embrace digital transformation without fear of complexity. Today, Thomas will show how modern digital solutions can simplify compliance, improve efficiency, and bring flow back into fragmented GMP workflows. So from my side, also a warm welcome to you, Thomas.
Thank you.
I want to also go very quickly through our goals for these webinars. So what are we going to cover in this session? First one, why so many GMP labs still struggle with fragmented workflows and how to fix it. Then another point is how to connecting LIMS with a service middle layer like zenLab eliminates inefficiencies and how it works. Another point is how to automate compliance, reduce errors, and simplify validation with GAMP5. And the last point is insights on how labs can successfully transform their processes. And of course, we will have an interactive Q&A session with Thomas at the end. So let's think of and bring your toughest questions. We want to be this valuable or most valuable for all of you. To have a rough overview about the agenda, we start with the challenges and the basics of regulated and automated workflows in laboratories. Why connect LIMS with a service middle layer like zenLab? zenLab in action. And at the end, we will continue with the Q&A session. And now I'm very curious and happy to have you on board. And we'll give the word to you, Thomas.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Philip. Thanks also to having the opportunity to speak here. And I would say we just go into my slides and start with the presentation. Just a second. So you should all see my slide. Wonderful.
Yes.
Let's start. So from fragmentation to flow, how or LIMS meet service middle layer in GMP labs. So first of all, I just would like to show you just a second. I would like to show you some background information about Infoteam. So we are around 320 people, employees, over 40 years old, in 5 destinations, an employee-owned company, and we are around these areas like industry, mechanical plant engineering, life science, of course, infrastructure, and public services. So that means, or of course, we go more in detail in life science, where we also talk about today. We help, of course, many companies from embedded software up to application or cloud applications, and we are mainly in the field of regulated software development, like medical devices, lab equipment, or GMP processes in the lab, where all these rules like GMP and GAMP5, of course, also applies. Some of our customers are, for example, Hamilton or Siemens Healthineers. Hamilton also, we are working quite often together in the field of liquid handling. So Of course, we have all these certified quality management certifications in place, which were finally also needed for GMP or GAMP5 applications. In fact, GMP or GAMP5 cannot be certified by a notified body, but of course, the medical certifications like 13485 or the EIC standard 62304, these are standards which are quite nearby and also work with the V model, which is also used in GAMP5 or GMP applications. So what makes the collaboration between LIMS and Infoteam innovative? When we have a look on the connectivity in the lab today, then we see that device level and LIMS are somehow connected with quite a lot of different interfaces, with customized interfaces, and we have here quite a lot of problems, or struggling with quite a lot of problems of customization, project specific applications or process specific applications. We have also problems with updates or updating with features. Maintainability is a problem, or scalability. Also implementing digital workflows is quite difficult, and of course we do not have interfaces or standards in place. What we already solved is, of course, with a LIMS, is the information and document management of these data. So where we want to go with a middleware layer, like what we have, for example, here at Infoteam, zenLab is such a middleware layer. We will want to implement an orchestration level or layer in between a LIMS system and the device level. So that means we put all together all the information of the devices or of different devices. We connect all the devices into a middleware and have then one interface to a LIMS system. And with this orchestration layer, we have also the possibility to customize the applications to make project-specific modules or applications, process-specific applications, and also to implement digital workflows according to GMP or GAMP5 rules. And of course, all of that is much better regarding updates, features, maintainability, and scalability. And how this middleware framework is looking like. So we have this zenLab basic framework, where we already implement all the needed features according to GMP or GAMP5 or CFR Part 11. So we have a database in place. Of course, we have modules in place like device management, audit trail, user management, messaging, and so on. So these are basic components which already covers all the needs or requirements regarding GMP or GAMP5. And on top of that, we have these green boxes, which are customized or custom-specific modules to implement then really the process-specific workflows and so on, or user interfaces, whatever. Yeah. Of course, we are also connected with you, Philip, with LIMS, and this is how it could look like in perspective of a one LIMS system, that you have your system in place and zenLab in between to connect your devices in the lab. So let's go over and let's start with a few basics about the digitalization at GMP and GAMP5. So let us start with the data maturity model. This model is from Hewlett Packard, made in 2022, and it shows the status of the industry, how far they are in the progress of digitalization, for example. And what you see here is, even we already talked since years about digitalization, we still have a lot to do. So most of our companies, and also in the lab, are still on the level L2, where we talk about maybe data models centralized in the business intelligence, but not really about data governance and advanced analytics, where we are, or where what is really needed, and for example, for a level 3 company. So that means we still have a lot to do with digitalization first in the labs, in order to go or make further progress with digital workflows, with centralized or advanced analytics, or even AI then in the future. And digitalization is also, of course, a huge or an important part for implementing smart GMP workflows in the future. What we see also, or pain points of siloed or legacy systems, are that we do not have, or we have quite a lot of interrupted data pipelines, or let's say not really data pipelines. We have interrupted data. We have data which is transferred manually or via Excel files, CSV files, via USB sticks, or whatever. And that also has an impact on workflows, which are very quite fragmented. We have manual workflows with additional process steps, with additional monitoring work, error-prone process steps, and of course a lot of additional controls and additional human power needed in the labs. And that's how it could look like in the future, or with a middleware in between, where we can close these data pipelines, or integrate these data pipelines into the systems, for, let's say, from device level up to ERP systems, to have communication and digitalization in the lab, which helps finally also in the GMP or GAMP5 CFR Part 11 processes. If we see that, or let's say here, when you have a look on a GMP or GAMP5, so GMP or GAMP5 is a systematic approach to ensure that the quality and the patient safety of a pharmaceutical product is safe, and the quality needs to be designed into the product and not only verified by black box testing. So therefore, requirements in the GMP and GAMP5 go much deeper and influence, of course, also the development and production process itself. So you can imagine that the data is somehow a key to ensure the required quality also here. Same also with CFR Part 11 regulation. So here we have to we regulate how or what is needed for electronic records. So in order to fill these requirements, technical and the regulation requirements, we need somehow to digitize or automate the workflows to have, as I said, these data pipelines. Manual or partly manual processes are of course still allowed, but these data breaches should be avoided as far as possible. Because and the reasons are that the processes should be traceable in every detail, and processes with workflows or data breaches are inefficient, time-consuming, error-prone, and need additional controls and resources. So on the next slide, I just have a short overview on how a GMP or GAMP5 process is looking like. Probably this is already known to most of you. Just having a short going shortly through that, we have, of course, here the user requirements. We see the V model with the design qualification phase, the installation operation qualification phase, and the performance qualification phase. And on top of that, we have always the risk management, which is applicable in all the different process steps. So, next question is, why connecting a LIMS system with a middleware layer? Yes, and I would like to give you an answer with an example weighting process or scaling process. So let's assume that we have here first of all an example architecture, which what you can see here, we have somehow an equipment in the lab, some scales. We have maybe a HPLC system, or we have some liquid handlers. We have, of course, the higher systems like a LIMS system, an inventory system, maybe also an ELN system, and maintenance and management system, an SAP system. And we need somehow to connect all these different systems together, of course, with the hardware, and put on top of that, of course, for example, a scale workflow or an HPLC workflow or a liquid handling workflow, whatever. And zenLab, or our middleware layer, is the solution to put all these different applications or equipment together, and in a GMP and CFR part likely manner. Here, let's dive a little bit more in detail when we say, okay, I would like to show you a scaling workflow, an example of a GMP scaling workflow. Then let's assume that we have some different scales as we see here. And we need to weight somehow different medias, different materials, and mix them together and have, of course, a standard operating procedure in place for that. And the workflow is running on or should run on a mobile device, so that it can be really running easily also in the lab environment. So the scaling workflow could look like that we have first of all a user logging which is also then stored in a audit trail in the first step. Then in the next step, we get all the information of a standard operating procedure, of a PO number, and we get the information of how many waiting steps are needed from the process database, and we get also the information about the material, the information about the which material, which amount, and so on. And all this information is coming from a process database. And of course, we put that all together once again into the audit trail. In the next two steps, we have the waiting steps itself. So let's say we scan the QR code of the material. We get the information from the SOP about the status of the material, and we get the number of the batch of the material. We scan the QR code of the balance, get the information back if the balance is calibrated, the status of the balance, and everything. And once again, put all the information into the audit trail. And in the next step, we wait, of course, the material. We somehow confirm how much material we wait on the scale, and put that information, of course, also in the audit trail. These steps are done as long as needed according to the SOP. And finally, we go then to the user logout when the process is finished and all the data is once again stored in the database. So as you can see, this is quite a simple workflow, but as you already can see, already with that simple workflow, a middleware layer or like zenLab can really help to implement these little workflows or even a small workflow quite fast into a lab. And this is how it could look like from another perspective. If we have a look on what kind of modules are needed to implement such a workflow application. So it's quite simple that we need somehow the interfaces for the data, for the hardware. We have a user management, which is already in place or automatically in place in zenLab. Also, alarms audit trail is already in place. We have an interface, of course, to a LIMS system, to the SAP, to an inventory system, and so on. And we have what we need really to implement is an HMI workflow and user interface. Most of the other models are already in place, so in fact we are quite fast in implementing such an GMP workflow finally. And if we have also a look on the regulatory side, what is really needed to implement such kind of smaller GMP project is that, of course, we have the user requirements or the requirement engineering design phase, installation onto operation qualification phase, and performance qualification phase. And what we also see is here that we, of course, develop these additional documents like qualification master plan, system testing, integration testing, module testing in the project itself, which is finally needed then for the GMP regulation. If we go a little more in detail, we see that the typical project execution plan has finally these, or during a typical project execution plan, we develop these kind of typical documents during the different phases. And as you can see, this is still, or this is not, this is quite a heavy amount of documentation, what is additional needed to the software programming itself. And this is also the reason finally why a typical workload of a GMP GAMP5 system, or developing of a GMP or GAMP5 system is like that. So that means the software coding, software testing, integration is only a small part of a GMP or GAMP5 project regarding the software development. So the bigger part is really all these additional parts which are needed according to the regulations, so like requirements engineering, QA management, risk management, and so on. So these parts are finally also needed, and that is, let's say, from the working amount, this is the more critical part, because here we need definitely more effort of implementing such kind of a project that normally is needed in such a just normal software developing project. So zenLab in action, and here I would like to show you just one small, or one example of how zenLab could look like, and how zenLab could look like in a scaling process, for example. And for that scaling process, which I already showed to you, we implemented an example for the Analytica last year, and I would like to show you just a short movie to show you how these how a scale process could look like. So this is my colleague Albrecht Liebscher. He's here. We are at the Analytica, and he's showing the a scaling process, a GMP-like scaling process, and how it could work. So what we see here is we have here a scale. This is quite a simple kitchen scale, for example. We have a temperature sensor which measures the temperature of the environment. We have here a monitor dashboard. We have a fridge with our different material, in this case candies, and we have a mobile application for the scaling process. So we just log in into the scaling process, and now we just scan with a QR code the material, get the information of the material, and now we just weight the material on the scale and get the information directly on the mobile, how much material or how many candies we just put on the scale. We have here once again the item information. And if we say now it's fine, we just have enough, we say okay. And this information is then, of course, logged here. We just show it once again. And then we go to the next item and scan the item and weight the item once again. Here on the dashboard, we have also the information of the candies in stock. So we see the candies which are actively in the process, in the waiting process, and the candies which we just waited in the last step, which are still in process because the waiting process is not finally confirmed or finally finished. And we also see what is the total weight of the candies in stock, and also the actual date. So here you see that both materials are now in process, and we also have some more information, the audit trail of the candies which were taken out. We see also the storage temperature and process temperature, the temperature outside, and some additional information. No, process is finished and we just log out. So this is one use case. For the next use case, or I just wanted to show you also the lab dashboard. So this is another use case which we made in the. So in fact, we just put here together all the different information in a lab, for example, of a stirrer, of the lab temperature or the lab environment, like temperature, humidity, pressure, CO2 concentration. We have also information about a scale, and we also can somehow start the process on the stirrer. So this is another example of quite a simple lab dashboard, and of course everything is stored in the background and is already CFR Part 11 ready and GMP ready. So this is my, let's say, my presentation. Thank you. And yeah, I'm here for further questions.
I'm blown away. Thank you very much, Thomas, for this valuable insights, information, and also very impressive demo of this end-to-end candy workflow. This was really nice to see it live, how it can work. What makes me curious is, so a lot of companies have already maybe a LIMS and think of to want to have an end-to-end workflow by integrated through a service middle layer like the zenLab framework. So from your perspective and based on your experience, what are the first critical steps to the labs or the lab team or the lab manager should take to ensure a smooth and successful integration of a service middle layer?
Yeah, so first of all, they should somehow define their goals or their requirements. First of all, put them somehow on paper, and then let's start with a really an MVP with the most important use cases. Then maybe start also. Next step, of course, or what is also needed is somehow to put further use cases somehow on a roadmap. What kind of further use cases are also there somewhere in the future, but do not have or do not need really an action right now. And then finally, we can start with developing this first MVP, and then which covers the actual whatever demand, but already have the demand or need or the requirements in somewhere in the back, which are needed for the additional workflows or the additional use cases. Mm-hmm. So, because in such an environment or with such a architecture, it's not really critical to implement somewhere in the future additional modules or additional features. It's not that important anymore, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, and also applies to what we face and what we suggest and work on together with our clients in environmental laboratory, regulated environmental labs.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned in one slide, this is another question, you mentioned the discovery or the requirements phase, and then an onboarding strategy with IQ, OQ, and I think PQ was also in this kind of phase. So can you give an estimation or a suggestion related to a time frame? What do you think, how long it takes to integrate such a service middle layer? I know it depends on different requirements.
Yeah.
You can give a rough estimation.
Yeah, it really depends on the different requirements. So let's say it could, so if the requirements are clear and we can start with implementation or with a detailed design, let's say that a detailed design can be implemented depending on the application between 1 to 3 months, mm-hmm. and then testing and implementation, then let's say 3 to 4 months, something like that. It really depends on how or how big the implementation is, but we always say we can also really start quite small, mm-hmm. with a really small MVP or a small feature, which definitively need not that amount of time, and then implement further features or further modules then in the future.
Mm. Yeah, that helps really, and can agree on related also to the time frame. It's really depends on the basic functionality, on the requirements of an integration, and the amount of different devices, third-party systems that should be integrated. That mm-hmm. has an effect on the overall time frame.
Yeah. Let's say also in our use case, or when we talk about this work or this use case with different scales, let's say we can, or we would also suggest to start with just 1 or 2 or 3 different types of scales. We know that quite a lot of labs have 20 or even more different type of scales. So mm-hmm. that could be also a solution, that we just start with 1 to 3 different types of scales, mm-hmm. and then implement further scales then later on.
Yeah.
Or roll out the work, these kind of work workflows then later on different sites in different labs and so on. So that's.
Mm-hmm. That's also a good point that you mentioned. So it's easier if you have more devices from the same type or the mm-hmm. brand to integrate them. Is logic. So rather than if you have several balances or scales from different types, it takes a little bit longer to integrate all of them into then the workflow. And another question is also curious from my side, based on our survey related to lab managers, we find out that roughly 75% of all regulated labs still work with isolated and fragmented workflows and data. Where do you see the biggest roadblocks, and where do you see the biggest challenges? Why don't not much labs work with end-to-end automated workflows?
Yeah, definitely one challenge is of course the regulation itself, because it somehow gives high innovations are not that easy, let's say, in the regulated environment. Need mostly quite high amount of workload to implement new innovations into regulated labs. That's one point. The other point is, of course, quite a lot of SOPs, processes are already written. They are not that easy to change. So that's probably the two most important points, I would say.
Maybe from my side, I can also agree on these 2 points, and add a third point is the mindset. So we heard a lot, never change a running system. Maybe I think you can agree on that too. From a lot of lab teams, is pretty hard to get this mindset shift of using and integrating new technologies. I think that's also one big point. To end the Q&A session also, do you see any kind of trends or technology which are shaping the future of digitalization in GMP labs that lab managers and lab teams should be aware of and maybe start already preparing for?
Yeah, definitely. Let's say the new technologies like AI and so on will somehow give pressure on the labs, or new business models and so on, will give you some pressure on the labs to somehow improve processes, to somehow implement digitalization into their environment. So these are definitely somehow the pain points, or the opportunities for the future.
Do you see, to add also to this question, do you see big changes in the upcoming regulation requirements and compliance?
Not at the moment, to be honest. So there will be not these huge changes, but definitely there will be a need for more digitalization in order to have more data available, better data available, have them available faster, and improve, of course, also then finally the workflows.
Yeah, we have also already, this is a great point, which you mentioned, that a lot of regulations are not yet AI or machine learning friendly, or friendly to automate in a kind of efficient way. There's still some need, a lot of documentation. It still needs a lot of manual work instead of using the available technology to enhance also the regulations and compliance requirements. Okay. Anything else to add, or any other questions right now?
No, at the moment not.
Good, then just like that, we reached the end of our today's session. But before we go, just want to take a step back and think about what Thomas have covered today. So we've talked about the daily struggles in GMP labs. So from fragmented systems to manual workarounds and also compliance headaches. We've seen how integrated LIMS and also service middle layers like zenLab framework can turn that data chaos and also workflow, manual workflow chaos into a smooth, connected, and automated process. And also thanks to Thomas, we've explored best practices and examples on how labs are already making this transformation a reality to think of and to get an impression of how it can work. The key takeaway also for me is digitalization isn't just about ticking compliance boxes, it's more about making the daily laboratory life more easier. So it's about building workflows that actually work, freeing up lab employees' time, reducing errors, and giving the confidence that the data which is produced day by day always is audit ready and traceable. So I've noted that we covered a lot today, and you might still have some questions. Maybe you think, how do I make this happen in my own lab? That's a crucial question. That's exactly where we are here. So let's stay in touch. You can reach us anytime, directly to Thomas through your LinkedIn profile or through Infoteam Software AG, or just send us a request to hello@onelims.com. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. It's been a great discussion, a great presentation, impressive demonstration from your side, Thomas. Huge thank you for sharing this expertise and to all of you taking the time to be here. So keep challenging the status quo, keep pushing for smarter workflows, and let's turn fragmented workflows into flow together. I wish you all a great day and hope to see you in one of our next online events or in real person. Have a great day.
Thank you also. Bye.